What's going on, music makers? It's your boy Fly Guy Jay, and I'm back with another video. Now in today's tutorial, I'll be showing all you Pro Tool users out there how you can quickly and accurately identify the tempo or BPM of your beat. One of the first things you should do when you start a new recording session is to identify the tempo or the BPM of your beat, and then set up the Pro Tools grid to match that tempo. By doing this, it allows you to use Pro Tools' most powerful editing mode, which is the grid mode. This will allow you to do time-based edits very quickly. Edits such as stutters, beat dropouts, copying and pasting or flying a hook, etc. will be easier to execute and will remain in sync with the beat. Now, before I show you guys this quick Pro Tools tip, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you can get notifications of future videos. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the way that I like to identify the tempo of the beat in Pro Tools is to find a 4-bar section of the beat, preferably where the drums are, because the transients will be much higher and easier to identify, such as here. I like to use the identify beat function in Pro Tools. And in order to use this technique, there's a couple things that I want to make sure I have enabled first. The first thing we want to do is to make sure we have the tab to transient button enabled. This will allow us to hit the tab key to automatically move our cursor to the next transient in our WAV file. The second thing you want to do is make sure you have slip mode enabled. And the last thing you want to do is make sure you have this AZ button or edit keyboard focus button enabled. This will allow us to use the A through Z keys on our keyboard for some quick Pro Tools shortcuts. So I could already tell by looking at the waveform that I'm going to want to start my 4-bar loop right around here where that sharp transient is, because that's where the drums come in. Let's just take a quick listen. Yep, that'll be a great starting point. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can make sure we're making an accurate first cut. And to zoom in, the shortcut is the T on the keyboard. All right, now I'm going to hit the tab key to move our cursor to the next transient until our cursor is on that first drum hit. Right about there. Now I will use another shortcut, Apple E, to split our audio at this cursor. What I'll do next is I'll let the beat play from this point on, and I'll count out 4 bars in my head, and then I'll find where I want to make the ending chop of our 4-bar loop. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like right about here is where the 4-bar loop ends. So I'm going to move our cursor closer to this mark, and then I'll hit the tab to transient again to line it up on that drum. Tab, 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 tab. And then we'll use that same shortcut, Apple E, to make another slice. Next, I'll make sure that the loop playback option is enabled. I can tell that it's enabled here by this loop going around the play button. If it wasn't enabled, you could also go down here to options and hit loop playback. I'm going to select the audio that we just cut, our 4-bar loop. Now I'm going to hit the play button and make sure that our loop sounds good when it loops back around. We want a seamless edit. Sounds good to me. So now that we've identified our 4-bar loop, we're going to use the identify beat function. We'll come up to the event menu and we'll choose identify beat. The shortcut for that, we could also just do Apple I, and that'll bring up the identify beat menu. Now I'm not going to worry about an exact location here. I'm just going to start off by realizing I have a 4-bar loop, and I'm going to say this is the first part of our 4-bar loop. I'm going to hit tab. We're in a 4-bar signature, so we're going to leave that 4 out of 4. And all that means is that we have basically a quarter note per each bar. So that's why you heard me counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and so on to figure out how many bars that I had. We have 4 beats per bar. And then for our endpoint, we're going to pick 4 bars later than what we started with. So our endpoint is going to be bar number 5. 1 plus 4 equals 5. And then I'll click OK. And as you can see, it's giving us a tempo of 75.001. So if we round that to the nearest value, our BPM or our tempo is going to be 75. So what I like to do from this point is to delete the beginning part of the beat. We can delete the end as well. Now we got to remember our tempo was 75, and we can go ahead and delete our beat markers. We'll move this red marker back to the beginning of the session. We can double click on it, change it to 75. Now that we have our session set up for 75 beats per minute, we can go ahead and change to grid mode. Grid mode enables us to move our audio around by only snapping to the blue grid lines shown. Now what I can do is I can move this 4-bar loop to bar number 9. I know that this is the right spot to move it because of how the beat was constructed. And now you can see that we're starting perfectly on grid at 9-1 and we're ending at 13-1 for a total of a 4-bar loop. The last thing to do is to extend the beginning and the end of the beat. So I'll go to my trim tool, I'll click and I'll drag this all the way to the beginning, and then I'll click the end and I'll drag it all the way out. And now we have our beat set up. And one last final check to make sure we have the grid set up properly. We'll go to the end of our beat. Let's zoom back in. I'll hit the T key, T, T. And let's grab this section here. We're still in grid mode, so we're going to snap to bar 49. And let's drag out another 4-bar section. Now let's hit play and make sure that it still loops seamlessly. Perfect. Now the reason why I like to check again toward the end of the beat is because if our tempo was off even just a slight amount, by the time we got to that end of the beat, the difference would be very noticeable and you'd quickly be able to realize that the grid was not set up correctly. So let's zoom in real quick and I'll show you a few quick edits that you can do now that you have the grid set up and synced to tempo. We could change the number of steps in our grid by clicking this button here and then changing to, let's say, 1/4 note. So now you see we only have 4 divisions between a bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you change it to 1/8 note, you'll get 8 divisions between the bar. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One thing we could do is we could drop out part of the beat before the hook comes in. Let's change our grid to a 1/4 note. We'll highlight a 1/4 note before the beat drops and we'll delete it. Now you'll hear we have a dropout before the drums hit. Another tempo-based edit we could do is we could do a stutter effect before the drums come in. In order to do this, I'll zoom in a little more on the grid. We'll change from a 1/4 note back to an 1/8 note. We'll copy this 1/8 note here of when our drums start. Apple C to copy. And then we'll paste it twice before that initial drum hit. Apple V and Apple V. Check it out. That stutter effect is a good way to switch up your beat and also a good effect to use on vocals. One of the most important reasons for setting up the grid mode is so that you can quickly copy and paste an entire hook. This way you don't have to waste the artist's time re-recording the hook a second or third time whenever it comes back in the song. You can simply copy and paste the original hook that was recorded to a point that's in time later in the song. I'll show you that real quick. My chorus starts on bar number 9. What I'll do to make it easier for me to see where I want to copy and paste is I'll hold the function key and I'll hit enter. This brings up a memory location. I'll call this hook 1 and then I'll hit enter. And as you see, it placed a memory marker on our timeline for when the first hook starts. Now let's zoom out. I'll hit R key to zoom out. And let's say bar number 29 is where I want the hook to come back in. I'll hold the function key and I'll hit return. And then I'll call this hook 2. Enter. So now I can easily see where I want the start of that second hook to begin. Now we can just go back to our hook number 1 marker. We'll highlight everything we want to copy all the way up until hook number 2. Now we can simply hit Apple D to copy that entire selection. There's a little bit of the hook that I missed right here, so we'll zoom in. I'll change the slip mode, grab our trim tool, and I'll pull that back to recover that audio. And now our hook should be right in tempo.
Nigga, baby, I wish I could freeze time. We grew up way too fast, wish I could rewind. Some of my niggas.
One important thing I should note is that by using the Apple D command, duplicate, if I had any audio in between here, that would also be copied. So you should be aware of this in case you have some audio recorded here that was different than some audio you had recorded here. In that case, you wouldn't want to use the duplicate function because it would replace this audio with whatever was here. Instead, you could use the simple copy and paste. So that's it for today's tutorial. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the bell so you can get notifications of future videos. And if you learned something new or if you enjoyed this tutorial, click that like button. And as always, keep learning, keep creating, and keep grinding. I'm out.
Baby, I wish I could freeze time. We grew up way too fast, wish I could rewind. Some of my niggas lost their life, I'm trying to keep mine. I don't really come around because I peep signs. Baby, I wish I could freeze time.